So.
Any approval of the agenda?
I so move. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Approval of minutes for the August 2nd meeting.
I'll move.
Approved and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
All the same time. Public comment. I heard there's one coming. Receipt of information from supervisors not seated. None. Update from Administrator Netherlands. I don't see him. Back to him, I guess.
On pinch hitting for him, but
I think we were gonna cover the budget. That was what was on his agenda, so he was just gonna defer to item number 12 on the agenda. if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, TV show. Give him another chance. Update by Highway Commissioner, Mr. Norwood.
Yes.
good looking bunch right here.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll give you an update on hopefully things I didn't cover the last time we talked at the board meeting. Next slide. On the government center update, August 23rd, our chiller finally died at the government center. No AC at the government center. So we ended up getting 4 5-ton units brought in, and instead of having them sitting in the hallways and trying to just cool one area at a time, we brought them up onto the roof into the penthouse and have them put into the system itself, trying to cool the system, which, you know, we're working on that. The offices that have moved into the main level right now, we're still waiting on blinds for those south-facing offices. Still have a lot of heat coming through those windows, but we are trying to cool them. If you hear talks of those. Next slide. Issues that have come up with that. We've had some asbestos mitigation done. The first one up top is the HR offices had glue underneath the carpeting when they changed out the tile, pulled the tile off and installed carpeting years ago. They didn't take off the mastic, so we had to abate that. The outside of the boiler jacket, we tested one area earlier on in the project. It came back negative. On retesting a second area of that outside jacket, that tested positive for asbestos. That cost was about $9,200. That was in the contingency that we thought for overage, so it's not an additional cost at this point yet. The roof, the new roof is going on at the government center. It is a rubber membrane roof with rock on top of it. We did find right here, this area here, once the rock was off, we found an area of 20 feet by 25 feet that was soaked through with water. You could actually wring out the insulation that had been leaking for a while. With that, that was about $1,000 to fix that. The new rock is going in today on top of that, and by the end of the week, the capping for the exterior of the roof around the outside should be installed, if not early in the next week on that. Next slide. The lobby is the way the lobby looks right now. We're still waiting on service windows. Things are going on. Lead times are still an issue for us. Right now, light switches, we have some that we received. We're still waiting on mid-October for those. The generator, emergency generator, is December 1st. The transfer switches are March of 23. The chillers, the new chillers are mid-March. The main electrical gear is January and February. The wood doors are the end of October, so we still have temporary doors in the facility. The air handling units are mid-October. The first floor, phase 2 occupancy, we should be getting those people back in the offices October 10th. We're shooting for. Second floor, phase 2 occupied areas are again October 10th. So at that time, we'll be switching offices again on that top level to get the east half of the top floor done and part of the boiler stuff going on. The ground floor restrooms, hopefully open by the end of this week, so they're moving right along. Next slide. Other projects going on, the 270, the bridge replacement in McKinley, that started this month. That's a federal project. The Church Road Bridge Deck replacement, we have a pre-con meeting set for tomorrow. So Lund will be replacing that here shortly. That again is another federal project. Also, I went out for RFQs, request for qualifications, for the project we got approved. That's 4 bridges, 2 county, 2 town, and then County Road F from 65 View Lane. So those are due back in October. Once I get all those proposals back, we'll go through that. I'll set them all up for you guys to take them home and rate those proposals. So we can start on a 3-party contract to hire an engineering service to start those projects. Those projects are all scheduled for 2025 and 2026, depending on which bridge it is. So those are coming. So if you have engineering firms contacting you, they do know that you are part of the selection committee. So they want to bend your ear how great they are as firms out there. State Highway 46. I do have a handout for you guys that I will get you. They're looking for any information, and that project goes from Highway 8 to 35. And that's a 26 year project. So that'll be, they're just asking for information on what people think about that project in the road. That'll be coming up. The Commissioner Committee member meeting in Hayward is scheduled for October 26th. As soon as that agenda comes out there, I'll get that to you guys. That'll be with our state representatives and the WCHA up in Hayward. With that, the cross-country management plan, there's a meeting set up second week in September at the Village of Pizzeria, between the Ski Club, the Town of Garfield, and the county to start talking about that project. Next slide. Other projects going on, Summers Lake Recreation Area. This was improving trails on county property as a people. We expanded, instead of just expanding the parking lot to go big, we made a loop up there. We have 6 slots that equestrians can back into those trails, spots and unload their horses. And then those trails are for equine hiking, snowshoers, mountain biking. We are working with DNR on replacing 3 culverts or installing 3 culverts up there. With that, so that's in progress to go through on that one. Next slide. Wanderoo's parking lot on the Stour. The parking lot is complete. We are waiting for the solar lights to come in on that one. Some cleanup on the ditch areas for seeding, for mowing, future mowing. And that should be ready to go this October for question use. So that's moving along. Very good. Next slide. Land transfer on State Highway 35. I'll cover that after this presentation, just show you where that property is. The state project on 35 just has some right of way that is in county's name if they want transfer to WISDOT for their project. Pretty standard stuff. It will go to ES committee tomorrow on those. We also have one on State Highway 65 in Wanderoos, kind of the same scenario. We own property right next to there. They should be state right away. It was never turned back to the state when they did the roadway. That one there has an issue with a sign for the University of Wanderoos bar. They were saying it was on right away, but it's on county land is what it's on. It's not on state right away at this point, but they're not going to remove that. The recycling center, still working on the recycling center. They're working on getting ready between the new area that was going to be added to it. Actually shows on this side right here. Reevaluating the roof right here for snow load. Since this roof is higher than the existing roof, the potential of drifting coming over the top is on there. And working with SEH on this one, we're working with, how we can phase this in. What will the $1.62 million get us? And what will the remaining part of the project cost, and can we phase it in? Can we get the building updated to code? And the addition put on for the 1.6, you have to phase in the equipment at a different stage, what those numbers are for, getting those numbers together is for you, so you have a clear picture of what the initial project's gonna cost and what the overall project is gonna cost. Then on the agenda, it talks about the Justice Center roof. This is approved to go back to the loan and do for $2.1 million. One of the things I mentioned before, I'm working with a roofing supplier manufacturer, get our best bang for the buck. But the $2.1 million, we got our estimates on a rubber membrane roof, like we have the Justice Center. They are susceptible to hail damage and puncture. About a 20-year life cycle on that bridge or that roof before it needs to be replaced. And this is the comparison, and why I bring this up is this is what you get instead of a 20-year roof, we get a 45-year roof. The initial cost, though, instead of the 1.2, an additional $500,000 to do that up front. The savings over the life of the roof, about $2.3 million for the taxpayer if we go with a multi-ply system roof. Les Mensa, you get a 30-year warranty. At year 30, you do a little restoration, you get another 10-year warranty out of it. Hopefully it'll kick that roof then to 45 to 50 years. I did propose this in the budget to the administrator, but it looks like a good dollar value in the long run, save the taxpayers versus trying to switch this roof out in 20 years. So that will be in the budget, and Don can talk more on that when he gets to his thing. Next slide. Another note I have is, I don't know if you heard, August 13th, former Highway Commissioner George Taylor passed away. His obituary, I have a copy if you guys want me to send you one, but he passed away on August 13th. Former commissioner, or Steve Warrendahl was commissioner, passed away on that. And then Claire, if you could bring up the land transfer.
There is that. I didn't mean that decision. On the deck on Church Road there, I thought that the town of Alden and Oak County were gonna partner cheaper than having the federal.
It was not. You know, we're only paying 20% of that. You know, the footings and the abutments are fine on that bridge.
Yeah.
The issue with the width of the bridge, we can't get a wider bridge on top of the existing footings. The other thing to do is we'd have to float the entire bridge project ourselves 50-50. We wanted to replace the bridge to get a wider deck on it, which would be probably looking closer to $1 million for that bridge to expand. So this way, we're only paying 80%. We're going
And when's that gonna start?
The pre-con is tomorrow.
Thank you.
The land transfer that I talked about earlier is on State Highway 35, just north of 40th Avenue. It's this little triangle here that the state is asking just be turned back to WISDOT for part of the right of way. It really has no value to the county at this time, but it does have value for their project. And this will be going to ES. With that, in the past, a lot of these, you know, have just been signed over by the highway commissioner, but we're just bringing them to the committee for your acknowledgement on them. I think that's all I got right now. All my papers. It's going to ES because they're the property committee, the county property. And then this is highway and highway right away. So it's kind of confusing. So I just bring it to both committees as covered both ways. And then this is the WISDOT request for information for the 46. For the 46. Yes,
Is Highway 65 still set for 24?
like next year, 23. That's what I got right now, unless you have any other questions.
Busy man, Dr. Mold.
A great crew, great staff.
How many people are you short?
We're currently short 4 in highway, 4 operators in highway, 1 parts position. And actually 3.5 in facilities. So we're backfilling we're only replacing one of those positions with another janitor, because we're utilizing the cost for contract cleaning. And hopefully moving those 2 FTEs from facilities to recycling to cover the request for 2 FTEs and recycling.
You're Walker, you're up next.
Mo's always a tough act to follow. I don't have the visual aids he does. A couple weeks ago, we hosted the retired deputy shoot. And we do that at Cushing Range, and it's a lot of fun. We get a lot of the old timers back. Pursuant to HR 218, retired law enforcement, in order to continue to conceal carry, have to complete a certification once a year. So we put that shoot on out at Cushing, and it's almost like a little bit of a reunion as well. So a lot of good stories. So Mr. Luke, if you can make that maybe next year, it would be, he would enjoy it. I think your name was even mentioned on some of the stories. We won't get into that.
Obviously good.
So I had about 13 retirees show up and complete the shoot, which is nice to see. You know, they tell us when we're in the academy that cops only live an average of 6 years after retirement. So it's encouraging to see that we have several retirees that are close to 80 years old, or if not over 80. So I'm always excited to see that as I get closer to retirement age here. Chief Deputy Burrows completed his first week of command college. I'm excited for that. Don is attending that. That's part of UW-Madison and the Wisconsin Department of Justice. So it's a supervisor course. So he started that, and we've got a few more months to wrap that up. Also, Don organized through the Chiefs of Police Association an opportunity for our officers and correction staff, if they choose. And it's a first line supervisor course. Actually, open to any member of the sheriff's office who wishes to have some online supervisor training. So that's provided free to us. So that's a great opportunity to have our people get a leadership opportunity. And if they look to further advance their career, we encourage them to pursue those types of trainings. We got through the holiday weekend this past weekend pretty good. We did have one serious crash. Haven't heard the results, but one was flown to the cities. But typically we fared quite well, considering there was thousands and thousands of people traveling through Polk County this last weekend. We got by pretty good. We're doing remarkably well on our crash statistics this year, and I don't even like talking about it, because both the time you do, it seems like it takes a downturn. So, but we're doing better than normal. Again, big concern, retention of our employees. We had another corrections officer put in a notice of intent to resign, taking a job with Chisago County across the river. Don and I just looked this up before we came here. I've lost 18 corrections officers in the last 2.5 years that have either retired or pursued other career ventures. So I know when we get to the budget cycle, we're going to talk about, you know, employee wages, and I can't tell you how valuable our employees are to us. And to lose an employee is such a setback. So I really hope we can take care of the employees that we have. Mo and I received a petition from some lake owners on Half Moon Lake concerned about the traffic on County Road G on the north side of the lake there. Concerned about speeding. So Mo and I will sit down and try to reach out to that group, but we did have a petition sent to us this past week. So we'll obviously take notice of that. And I can honestly say that for the 28 years or so I've been around, that has always been a source of complaints, that Half Moon Lake area. Traffic does flow through there pretty heavily, and people are concerned. And a lot of the places have to cross the road to get to their lake access too. Yeah. So, you know, we've put our speed board out there in the past, and, you know, we try to work with the people, but I was surprised to see that they actually circulated a petition. So we'll certainly be addressing that in the near future here to make sure we can come up with some options for that. Other than that, we are looking at, you know, we didn't have enough, squads weren't available this year, so we didn't quite have the ability to buy as many squads as we needed, so we do have some money in our outlay for vehicles, so we're probably going to buy an ATV. Just to give you the heads up on that, we'll be able to do that this year. So that's about all I got for that. We've had a great year with the rec patrol. Great year on the boat. Great year so far on the ATV enforcement end. Our guys really getting out there and working a lot. So very proud of that position. Any questions?
Sure, Rob, I want to thank him for, I attended that neighborhood night out.
Oh, sure.
You and your staff did just a fantastic job. Was there about 300 people there altogether?
I know we served over 200 hot dogs. I think we served about 220 hot dogs that night. So Don cooked a large portion of those, and we're public servants, so we can truly say we serve the public that way. But no, that is a great night, and thank you for attending that. That was always the first week of August that happens, and it hits us kind of at a bad time because the fair ends and then that begins a couple days later. But great turnout, and that event seems to be growing. So yeah, I agree. Our staff volunteers for a lot of that, and they do a great job.
Kids that were there was just amazing. I think every kid had a prize of some kind.
Yep.
Never seen a bunch of kids so happy as what you had there.
And our community partners as well. We get a lot of participation from other entities, Baltimore Lake Fire, Public Health. We just get a lot of good, it's a lot of people coming together to kind of showcase what we all do. Mr. Warndall, did you have a question?
Good story about pushing rifle range. Lloyd Westland was out there. And he said, I can outshoot you upside down. We'll use the same gun. Okay. But I'll shoot upside down, you shoot right side up. I can outshoot you, and he did. Holding his gun upside down, and I could hold it right. So, more boys can still shoot.
No, it's a really neat thing we do every year. All right,
What kind
thank
of
you.
exercise did you have them down at the old air base here about a week ago?
What's that?
What kind of exercise did you have down at the old air base a couple weeks ago in Farmington?
This is just training, I think it was.
At the commissioners meeting last month, you had a letter there that said you had some information on the command center or an alternatives or something. Do you have any update on that?
Yes. And I think we'll probably get into that a little bit when we get to the budgeting.
Oh, okay.
Just trying to explore other options
Right.
for some cost savings, but like I say, it's an expensive world right now. Yeah. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Rowdy regarding Polk County ATV to be ad hoc. I thought we had an excellent discussion today in that they're finishing up the signs in Sterling. And we help understand what's going on. Melvin behind Smith, he called me, was it last week? Last week, and said, you want to go for a ride? We're just about done with the signs. I'll show you everything we've done. And Mark Nelson was there. He grades the trail once a week. And he drove, and we basically went the whole way around the trail and learned how much they've done and how Mo was constructed, ran the clubs, but have done the new north side. And it was fantastic to get out there and take a ride and understand what's going on. It's quite a project, and I think it's going to be very popular when it all comes together. They're so close. And then the clubs also were talking about all the work they're doing on the Sawmill Trail and the Cattail Trail this week. And it sounded like brushing on the side. Danny Carlson's working on that. And I thought he said maybe a week or so he'd be working there. Yeah.
So
Hey.
put in a lot of time at Newborn. It's fantastic. And Melvin has a letter from the Luck ATV UTV club, and they went out to Sterling and Road, and
just thought it's such a fantastic place to go. So I guess that's most of what I have for.
Thank you. CJCC update.
So for August, we had 11 participants in treatment court and 4 referrals that are in process. And we did have 2 graduations at the end of July, and just a cool story with that. Both of the individuals that graduated are still on probation, but we had a report from the probation agent that one of the graduates is still continuing to do community service, even though that requirement is long over. So that was great to hear that they're still giving back. For first time offender, we had 5 participants and 8 referrals, 2 graduations, and 1 termination. The intoxicated driver intervention program, there were 12 participants, 3 referrals, and 1 graduation. Substance diversion, there is 1 person pending. As of a couple of weeks ago, our pretrial screening, so the use of the PSA assessment has started, and that's going well. And by switching to that, we were able to take a little bit of burden off the jail staff, because now they don't have any additional questions to ask in the booking process. Our new diversion case manager is now trained in, and she's doing an awesome job. Some of the subcommittees right now are looking at an aftercare program for people leaving CJCC programs, so like our diversion and treatment court graduates. And then our community engagement subcommittee is looking at addressing vaping in the schools, along with some individuals from Health and Human Services. And we're hoping to start getting into schools to meet with some of their administration to get stuff set up in October.
Any questions? Thank you very much. Vincent Lake Lane address change.
I'm gonna have Brad speak on this. First of all, I just wanna let you know, I apologize for so many documents in the packet. Petitioners asked that they be included. But in this handout, which we just delivered, pretty much provides some context and some history behind this concern. And turn over to Brad.
Yeah, very simply, this is going to be very brief. There has been a resolution in this matter. So I'm just going to read off of here item or point 13 here. The county received an email from the residents of Vincent Lake Lane that they will not be submitting a petition to the county clerk's office to retain the roadway name of Vincent Lake Lane. So per section 52A and 56C of the rural address numbering system, residents have requested that the historic road name be kept on the road sign. So basically, we're just going to keep it. We're going to have all the physical street names that were approved by the zoning division. And we're just going to add Vincent Lake Lane as a historical marker for that roadway. The county is going to work with the town to consider what street signs actually go out there. But so the matter has been resolved. All right. Yeah.
So the call come in, but the street and number won't come in as Vincent Lane. It'll come into the dispatch.
Correct.
Dispatch will have it dispatch the number, right?
Yep.
That's helpful.
Yep.
I was telling Jay that the 97-year-old grandma, when a call comes in, listens to the radio with the monitor. She says, well, that must be Weimer's house. And I mean, it isn't in the township she lives in. But she knows,
Yeah.
she knows the grid system so well. And I feel that way too. When my hand hits the door handle, I already know where I'm going. So unless it's a main street that I haven't been to, those are always problems. Not the great system. Well, thank you very much.
Yep.
Good to have it resolved before next year.
It was ever compared to the last time.
And then we come to our annual budget review.
Sarah, would you mind putting up that, information laden PowerPoint presentation? Thanks for the opportunity to present today. I'm just going to give you an overview of where we are with the budget process. Be happy to entertain any questions as we go along, try to touch on a couple of things that have already come up. Again, my name's Don Wortham. I'm the General Government Director. Glad to be here. Okay, there you go next. So just a little overview, and you've got the same information in your packet, printed in grayscale, so it won't look green like this. So where are we? Well, right now we got a lot of planes in the air. We got air traffic controllers on the ground, kind of keep them all safe. We're going to get them to the airport by November 8th. Going to get you a budget that you can approve between now and November 8th. So we've been getting information from the departments, the division directors about the things that they're interested in including in the budget, getting some sense of where we stand in terms of COLA, cost of living increases, and things like that. So we're right about here. 9-6 exactly here, where we're presenting budget overviews to each of the committees. So tomorrow we'll be with Bob at ES, Bob on, and we'll cycle through all the committees, giving you an overview. And then on the 15th, we'll be in front, the 20th, we'll be in front of the full board with a similar kind of presentation, but showing you the opening the kimono for all the departments and divisions. You're just going to see public safety, public works today. We'll get a chance to digest that for about a month. Vince will come back and on the 18th of October present the budget as we see it at that point. Start to get close on 25th of October. The budget goes into the paper and the public hearing and opportunity to approve on the 8th of November. So that's kind of where we're going. Any questions about that? We'll go to the next slide. I apologize for the small type, and Claire, if you wouldn't mind maybe dragging the window. Yeah. So this is mostly for folks who haven't been through the budget process before, including me. What are our principles? Well, levy dollars are the ones we go after last. We want our spending to as much as possible reflect board priorities. About 2.5 years ago, the board set out 4 top priorities and another handful of subsidiary priorities. We're always keeping those in mind when we work on the budget. On the expense side, departments have been developing what are called additional funding requests. So that's outside of this current year's budget, new things that they want to do. They're also developing 5-year capital plans. So at general government, in about a week, we'll show the first overview of the overall capital 5-year plan for 2023 and on. We want to try to maximize external revenue to the degree that we can. The county has been good at securing extramural funding. In fact, CJCC, as you've heard before, has done a great job of that recently. And we don't want our fees to exceed the cost of delivering the service. So the board approved the fee schedule at the last board meeting. That's already sort of baked in. But this is our list of principles. If we missed anything, let me know. If not, we'll keep going. So who does what? We've gone over this a little bit already. We've got departments and then the general government staff and then the administrator. So the departments are responsible for looking out at their operations, seeing what they're doing now, and trying to imagine what they're going to need to do next year. If they need to do things next year that aren't in this year's budget, they need to put additional funding requests in front of us. They also need to prioritize those. So if you have 11 of these requests, tell us which is 1, 2, and which is 11, because not everything is going to get funded, right? What does general government staff do? Well, we estimate the allowable levy and we'll ultimately calculate that finally after about September 15th. We review those additional funding requests and we look at operating increases or decreases across the departments and divisions. We build a staffing model, the number of FTEs, what the cost of living projections are, whether we're going to do anything with the healthcare plan, look at workers' comp, ... We build a staffing model and all the expenses. So we put it in the blender, we develop a draft budget. So right now, where we are is the blender spinning on that draft budget. No decisions have been made, but you're going to see some parameters as we go further in the deck. After general government reviews the additional funding requests, the administrator, Vince, looks at these and prioritizes those. His job is to communicate the budget to you as it stands and then bring it before you for a final vote. So those are sort of the roles of the three major inputs here. Any questions about that? Okay, next slide. So now we're getting in a little bit of the meat. That was all the overview. When we're thinking about the expense side, we always look at employee-related expense, operating expense, non-employee operating expense, and then capital expense. Cost of living adjustment is something we spent a lot of time thinking. We've collected some data about what's going on elsewhere in the state. We've got a pretty big range from other counties, ranging from about 2% on the low end to 7% on the high end. Last year, with our cost of living increase, we were at 2.9. What's under consideration right now, this is all subject to discussion in that model, those airplanes coming into the airport, is something between 3 and 4%. The employee model also has a merit component, kind of a leftover from Act 10. Last year's merit raise was 2%. We're working on the same number for fiscal 23. We're also thinking about how that merit increase covers our working population, our employee population. Up to this point, it has not included all employees. It has only included up to the employee making the median or market wage. We're looking at if the board really wants us to do a performance valuation system and some performance-based pay, if we don't have the entire group of employees covered, we don't necessarily have a perfectly fair system. So we're looking at expanding the merit plan for 2023. Hasn't been determined yet, but we're considering. On the healthcare side, this is really crystal balling. Every month's different. We generally, in the last 3 years, have come in lower than anticipated, which is kind of a miracle. Right now, our actuaries are telling us we should expect to pay about the same for the actual healthcare costs next year, about $4.6 million over all our insured employees. Our goal has been and remains, we want to keep employee premiums flat or at least moderate the increase. If we keep our employees' premiums flat, the rest of the market is adding every year. If we had a modest increase, our increase would still be below what other organizations are doing. So that's what we've got in play right now. You're probably aware of the existence of this health fund. It's got about $7.2 million in it. In a couple of seconds, I'll be talking about flexibility in budgeting. That does provide the county some budgeting flexibility with respect to spending money on healthcare administration. Any questions about, everybody's still awake? This is a lot of words, a lot of numbers. Any questions about employee side expenses for fiscal 2023 so far?
I think maybe for the newer board members, just explaining that we are a self-funded health insurance plan. And so that's what makes us different. And that's why we've been very lucky.
That's helpful. We are self-funded. And then we have what's called stop loss insurance policy, which over about $200,000 per employee related healthcare expense kicks in. So that protects us from real crazy situations where one of our employees has a terribly expensive healthcare situation. We pay that first $200,000 and the insurance kicks in. Thank you, Malia, for that. Any questions about this? That was helpful. Clear? Okay, so non-employee expenses. So there's a lot of categories here, but when we started this budget process, we said, okay, for your budgets, consider an increase in your operating expenses of 1.5%. So 101.5% of last year. We're also modeling a flat, so no increase, exactly what we spent last year in terms of non-employee operating. We're also, just to be prudent, asking our folks to model a situation where we're asking the departments to give back some non-employee operating money. Crystal ball is not perfect. We want to just make sure we've got all the scenarios. Now, you may be asking, what is operating expense that's not related to employees? Well, it's driving the county cars around, it's repairing equipment, it's things like that that aren't capital and aren't employees. On the capital side, you can imagine that the requests vary dramatically department to department. You know, software is a capital expense. A plow truck is capital expense. An emergency command center is a capital expense. Anything over $5,000 is depreciable. It goes into that capital improvement plan that I mentioned a few minutes ago that will show the first draft of the general government in about a week. Any questions about this? Okay, we'll roll on. This is kind of a big picture thinking slide. So when someone comes into an organization and they're responsible for putting the budget together, they often ask, and I did, what's flexible and what's inflexible? Well, levy is not flexible. We're pretty much told by the state what we can collect, unless we go build some projects that we can raise the levy for, build a football stadium or something like that, then we can increase the levy. But we're not forecasting that, so the levy is really fixed for us according to the state. We don't have any control over sales tax. So we don't have any flexibility around that. We have some flexibility around grants. We can apply for more grants and hope we get them. But we don't have control over that. We don't have control over whether we get the money or not. We do have some flexibility around our general fund. We've been adding to it over the last few years. We're about 28 million, about 7.2 is tucked into that health fund. We can spend that on projects if you're in agreement. Possibly not popular, but we can also buy. We have about $1.6 million of bonding capacity left before we hit that $2.5 million debt coverage ceiling that we've got each year. We're just trying to put the levers on the table for our departments, our divisions, and for you as a board. Just want to get them out there. So inflexible, medium flexibility, relatively flexible. Questions about that? Okay, I think I'll put everybody to sleep. Forecasted revenues. We have we're estimating right now, and won't know for sure till mid-September what the levy is going to be. We're thinking it's going to be about $24.3 million. That's on about a $70 million budget. So all that other money has to come from other sources. We're imagining we're going to get about $4.25 to $4.6 million in sales tax revenue. We've been very conservative with our budgeting. We budgeted $3.6 million in 2021. We actually brought in $4.6 million more. We budgeted $4 million this year. You know, we still got some months left. It's looking like we're going to crest at about 4.6 million. There are estimates out there right now that are suggesting we'll bring in about 4.9 to 5 million. I'm for 23. We're not going to budget for that entire amount. We're picking with our actuaries and our folks at PMA. We're trying to find a number that we can all be 95% confident in. It'll come in that or above. We're imagining it's going to be in this range, 4.25 to 4.6. External funding. We want all our departments and divisions to apply for everything that's reasonable and feasible. One thing we know is we're not expecting a lot of new COVID type money coming. So we had a couple of really good years with extra mural funding because, harsh to say, but because of the pandemic, I don't think any of us are foreseeing a lot more of that. Okay. We'll go next, Claire. We're getting to public safety. This is all for any committee. Every committee will see the same thing. We're getting close to talking about public safety, public works, which is what you really care about. I mentioned the department role is to figure out what these new expenses are likely to be, write them down for us so we can evaluate them and prioritize them. We can go to the next slide. So what are we hearing from our folks in law enforcement? These are divided into operating and capital. We're hearing about $228,000 with a personnel related request. The sheriff emphasized how important it is to keep law enforcement personnel at market prices, at market wages. We've also got some capital requests, 1 to 3 generators this year. They're about $33,000 each. We're either going to buy 1 or 3, and a new canine. You've heard about the mobile command center. The administrator is going to provide a list of options for the board to consider overall. And the mobile command center will be in that stack of options. And we're imagining now that the range is something like 175 to 550, maybe a little more, maybe a little bit less. On the low end would basically be our unit or a unit a lot like it. It's simply retrofitted. The chassis and engine are good. We rip out all the internals, replace with new internals. We're going down the road on an older vehicle. But this got new things within it. And I think even Don today's had a conversation, Don Burrows, Don B, Don Burr, D Burr, has had a conversation with a vendor about a unit that is going to be below that $700 and X thousand we were talking about the last time we were out here, probably more in that middle range, 550. So that's what we're seeing from law enforcement, and the gentleman in the back should raise their hand if I missed anything important. There's still time to get it in.
I would just say, I just want to remind you about the canine request. Our canine passed away and we were given an insurance check for that dog. So it's just really a kind of a carryover situation. The St. Paul Canine School doesn't start till February. So that's when we would be putting the new dog. So just an FYI.
So I'll get a backpack. This really big backpack.
Don, where we at right now on sales tax as of now compared to?
We're heavy. We've got more in than we thought we would. As I mentioned, it's looking like crystal ball will end up at 4.6. We had budgeted just a little over 4 million. Folks that are super optimistic are thinking we might hit 4.9 next year, 5.0. We haven't made a practice of budgeting to the high forecast.
I think being a border, we're different than the rest of the state, but all the state meetings that we go to, so many of the counties are down and they keep on warning.
Been favorable for both, there's no question. And when we talk to our consultants, they're looking across a number of counties that they do business with, just like us, and they say we're in an enviable position with respect to sales tax. Thank you for bringing it up, John. Okay, we're almost at the finish line. Public safety, public works. So Mo mentioned some personnel-related expense related to recycling center. There's a few other step increases. We're looking at about $400,000 in a deferred maintenance kind of fund for facilities and parks. And then we've got a number of capital requests. We're currently coming in about $600,000. You'll notice that where is he? Mo mentioned the roof, $500-600. That'd be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So $500,000 to $600,000 to go to that 40-45 year roof over the 20. That'll be in the packet of items for you all to consider that are coming from fence. So other than that, we've got these items for Mo. Any questions about that? Or any comments you want to make, Mo, in addition?
No, the capital requests for the 400K are kind of the parks and facilities projects that we have laid out, kind of combined all together for those types of requests. Naturally, the equipment for highways equipment is not listed up there due to it's within the budget of highway currently in the maintenance fund. So it's kind of covered with that along with the road projects and stuff. Our $2.1 million for construction project is within that budget itself already.
Did I miss something there? Our wages for our personnel?
Yeah, we're looking at, there's two parts. There's the cost of living adjustment. Our model has cost of living adjustment separate from what we call a merit or a step increase. So we're looking at somewhere between 3 and 4% raise. Really the cost of living adjustment, that's why we call it that. But it's to cover inflationary pressure. And there's a merit increase of 2. So sort of the maximum we'd be doing this year would be 4 plus 2. And the minimum we're thinking about is 3 plus 2 or 5. As these planes start to get closer to lose altitude, get closer to the tarmac, we'll dial that in more, but those are the ranges we're looking at right now, sir.
They're pretty much equal to.
So what we hear from, Burnett, let me go to Barron first. We're hearing from Barron, they're gonna be about 3.75 for their COLA. There's a range of I think we saw 20 different counties. The low end was 2% for COLA and 7% on the high end. That would be a budget buster for us.
What's confusing is we always hear comparisons of Burnett and Barron. But we border St. Williams, Chisago, and those are the places we lose most of our employees.
Fair, that's fair. So we'll likely have an update that includes St. Croix County by the time we get together again.
We have to.
And we'll try to figure out what's going on across the river as well. I think that's very fair.
When will we get the breakdown, let's just say the sheriff's numbers here for personnel? When will the committee or the board get to see what it is he's wanting that money for?
Can you go all the way back to the second slide, Claire?
Am I that far behind?
No. Go one more, please. Yeah, so this is the beginning of sort of the review process. So you're hearing the big picture today. At the next meeting, you'll see more specifics. It'll be dialed in a little bit more. And then when the full board meets, we'll be dialed in October, dialed in even more. And that's pretty much, I've heard, people throw things, hit each other, yell. No, it's where you have your consideration of all the things, not just public safety, public works, but all the different committees at the same time. The blender's really running at that point. So at your next committee meeting, you'll get more detail about public safety, public works requests. You'll get a stack of all the funding requests from the departments. You'll get a preview of, I think you'll get exactly what you want, but that's not till next month.
Very good, thank you.
We'll see on the one slide, I mentioned the D.D. Kennedy walking bridge. That bridge was put in the budget last year. That was deferred, was pushed back. It wasn't approved. That's at $250,000. In 2021, the bridge report put a bridge replacement around $180,000 for a new bridge of a 50 to 75-year life. The repairs that the engineers want us to do in 2021 were $135,000 in repairs, which would get us out to 10 to 15 years on that Blue Land Bridge. So costs have increased. So the repairs on it's pretty well shot. It's posted. Actually, the walking bridge is posted for only 10 people. The engineer won't tell us how big of 10 people can go on it, but it's 10 people. So it is in poor shape. So that's back in the budget for this year.
That's all I have for you. Happy to entertain other questions.
Seeing none, we thank you very much.
I appreciate the time to have a dialogue. Thanks.
The work plan, I guess, pretty much stuck on budget, so. Thank you. Any matters for the next meeting? If you do, please forward them. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn. 2:55.
Second,
I'll second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.